Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Karla Eli Show. I'm your host, Karla Eli, and today I have another very special guest. You ladies already know that I love bringing on some guests because I love to learn from them. And I think that having more people added into the conversation of relationships, business, money, mindsets, mindset shifts. Yet this week we're going to learn about EMT tapping, movement in our body, the feminine cycle, right? Tracking our menstruation and things like that. Like all of these conversations are so important. And today we have a special guest where we're going to speak on finances and money mindset. Please welcome in Kirsten. Kirsten, please introduce yourself. Thank you so much for saving the time out of your busy schedule to be here with us. I really value that. Thank you.
Hi, Karla. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful to be here. I am a money mindset coach and certified trauma of money instructor. I have a prior background of doing financial planning. I did that for a little over 6 years, and my passion is really on empowering women and a lot of families on transforming their relationship with money, the way they relate to money on a psychological level. So that's pretty much it.
Yes, yes. And I we're here to open hearts and get vulnerable with each other. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your hobbies, what you like to do on the side? Can we get to know you a little bit more?
Yes, absolutely. So I really love listening to podcasts, of course. I'm really big into reading in terms of, I would say, learning about hormonal health, that too. Just doing a lot of, I would say, um, low impact exercises. So things like walking, Pilates are in the menu as well, and visiting cute coffee shops. I am just a girl after all.
I agree on the coffee shops. And, maybe you can list some books towards the end of this conversation about any books that you recommend for us to read in regards to money mindset, but also the hormonal thing. Because I am also on this journey on like figuring out all of the different hormones that we have as women. And now that I'm being seen by, my OB and things like that, it's like, it's so important. And it's so good to go to the doctor's office and be like, I feel so tired and fatigued and I feel sad and all these things. And they're like, oh, honey, your hormones are out of whack. Like it's not even a you thing, it's just like a hormonal thing. I
Yes.
feel so validated when I learn more on that. So towards the end, maybe we can drop some names of books. I know the ladies here who listen are, like I said, behind the scenes. These women are deep, okay? And they're interested in educating themselves and learning more about how they can better their lives all around. So maybe we'll discuss that towards the end. But anyway, here I come with my first question. When I first came across your content, I have to say I loved your style. You made it so easy for me to understand money mindset shifts, and you even introduced different credit cards that you could use to start off to build your credit or loans, which I really, really liked. And it's so interesting because you also tied it to some of the videos that I posted, which I don't have a question written here, but maybe we can talk about it later on about even provider mindset men, how you said provider mindset men, they show you everything because they have nothing to hide. So it was so very, very interesting for me to just see that perspective, how everything kind of comes together. But please touch on more of your expertise, your experience. You say you work with people who have traumas in regards to money. How does that look like? And for me to also identify, do I have trauma? Like what? I want to learn, so please share more on your expertise.
Sure. So, as you know, I got started posting content on TikTok. So back in 2021, primarily then I was focused on a lot of the gaps that I saw in the financial advising space. So mostly things in terms of why women weren't investing enough money, how to save money, things like that. However, with time, I noticed that there were other gaps as well in the sense of how people's past with money was invisibly shaping a lot of their habits in their current reality. A lot of business owners are undercharging for their services or burned out because of a lot of limiting money beliefs. And so, like specifically, I noticed too that also a lot of unhealthy friendships or even relationships on the personal side for some of my entrepreneurial clients, that they were having were because of these limiting money beliefs. So the reality is that a lot of the times we only focus on the present in a sense of what's happening, what we're actively going through, but we're not really seeing in terms of, okay, this is why I made that choice and what can I actually do differently in order to feel different in the way that I relate to money.
Okay, no, no, no. I love that. And I also I think for myself, I didn't start having a healthy relationship with money, I think until I got married, where my I will be 100% honest with you. I'm a spender. I love to spend. I love to spend, okay? After all, I'm just a girl, right? So, I love to spend, but then I working with one of my mentors, she's like, "Okay, one of the reasons why you probably love to spend so much and like a big, it's probably because you don't feel enough. Like it feels like you don't have enough." And once she told me that, I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to analyze this a little bit more. And then it wasn't until now where we're in a very healthy financial place that we're so comfortable. It's such a different experience, just like being like, oh, well, if I need it, it's there. And
Yeah.
I feel a lot more secure and relaxed, if you will. And I don't spend as much as I used to when I just, first found out, oh, maybe this is a limiting belief, right? And God has really worked with my own personal heart and with the relationship of money, because money, it's just an object, and the way that we see it, I think it very much affects us. In the beginning of my entrepreneurship journey, because I'm new to this whole game, right? I'm new to being my own boss. I'm new to um working with other students globally, contracts, having an accountant, having like you know people who help me just in general. And so all this is very new. And I used to demonize money. And it wasn't until I got into the space of entrepreneurship and valuing myself in terms of money as well, and the way that it takes to work with me. It just became a lot healthier for me, and it took off a lot of like mental load. But that's just my personal experience with just money in general. And the good thing is that my husband, even though he's like I said, he's a provider, but with being that provider, he's also very frugal. But like if you need it, we'll do it, and if you want something, we'll do it if it's wise to. Like he's really good. His relationship with money is, I would say, excellent. And he even taught me all the reins that he knows. But if it weren't for choosing a partner that was financially literate, I guess you could say, I think I would still be carrying a lot of the habits that I saw growing up with my parents. Because in my family, even though we were generating like top 5% income, it was still never enough. Like my parents lived like paycheck to paycheck, even though they had a surplus of income. And so I think that definitely affected me. But then getting married, my whole perspective on money really shifted. So I apologize for that venting and that rant, but I want to hear your thoughts on that. Is this normal? Do you see this often with your clients?
Yes, no, it's absolutely normal. First of all, I think that our environment, in terms of like online and physical, really does curate a lot of the way that we see things and what we view as normal. So it is very normal to go through that transition and that shift, specifically when your goals as well shift in the sense of certain things that you prioritize before. That's makes sense why you had certain habits because that was what was important to you. And so later on, through marriage, having different goals, different priorities at that moment, it's normal for your habits to shift. It's normal for those values to change, which can be tough. It can be tough, especially when we're used to seeing things through like a certain lens, and then it's like, whoops, pivot.
100%. And I'm not gonna lie, like I was that, I grew up with like, let's go with Disney passes, Universal Studios passes. We go on trips a lot. We spend a lot. You want something, you get it. Like you want the newest iPhone, you're gonna get it. You want the newest clothes, you're gonna get it. Like very much materialistic. Not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just saying like the level of spending that we did in general in my household before getting married was wow. Like, there was like no limit for us, right? And so, yes, it's a blessing, but at the same time, you look back and you're like, but dad, but mom, like you guys took like 30 years to buy a house. Like you could have gotten multiple houses at this point with the level of income that you were making, but because your priorities were elsewhere, you didn't get there, right? And so I think it's so interesting that you say that. It was like an aha moment for me, because the reason why it doesn't bug me, or I'm not like thinking, oh, we don't generate enough because I don't have the newest, I don't know, like the newest couch or the newest TV, the newest stand, and it makes me feel like at peace. It's because you're right, my priorities have shifted, and I'm thinking long term, like where are my priorities? My priorities lie in my health, my priority lies in real estate. And let's be honest, right now with the economy, it's getting a little tough out there, but not impossible. However, priorities and goals need to be very, very, like, you need to be just very focused. And it's so hard in a world full of distractions, in a world full of like lollipops and candies and sparkly things. And I really needed to shift that, because with the way that I was spending, not good. Not good. But anyways, I don't know if you have anything to say about that, because I'm just being very real and transparent, because I know that a lot of women, I'm not the only one. There has to be other women who found themselves in the same position as me. So funny.
No, of course, I definitely agree with you. Specifically the fact that sometimes we like certain thoughts may creep up, like when your habits like shift in the sense of like, oh my gosh, like, am I doing like, the best thing for me? Like, is this actually going to work within 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20? Especially because a lot of the times it's like the hardest thing to process is going from the short term prioritization of instant gratification, right? In the sense of like, okay, you know what? Um, Next check comes, whatever next deposit hits, I'm gonna do this. But now, rather than thinking what can I spend first, shifting that to what can I invest? How am I paying myself first? And then the rest of that, allocating that. It's not always the easiest thing, especially when situations in life come up. But sometimes that discipline, I think it really helps to curate on what's really important. And like peace of mind is something that has no price. It has no price compared to anything else that people can tempt us with. Um, that in the reality, like sometimes it's not the things that actually they give us true inner peace in the long term.
Absolutely. And I mean, I to add to that, I'm telling, like, now I live a much more, like, I'm gonna be so transparent. All the furniture that I have here, it's from either Facebook Marketplace or from a garage sale, from estate sales, or sometimes I had a garage sale where they were giving everything for free. And it was the best decision for my family at the time. And these pieces are not ugly. Like if you look at my dining table, it's chic. It's like it and but it took a mindset shift, because at first my parents were like, ew, you're gonna go to a garage sale or you're gonna go to an estate sale. By the way, nobody puts the hype that estate sales need. I know that it's not for a good reason, because someone's about to pass or someone's no longer capable of living there. However, you find the most, like, the greatest pieces there. But at the time, starting off our life, that was like the only way for us. And I say the only way because could have we have gone into more debt? Probably. Like, yeah, most likely. But because our mindset shifted, it's like, no, let's play it smart. Let's not have negative, I guess, perspectives on using what someone else has already used. And you look at my house and all my friends are like, oh my gosh, your place is so cute, it's so curated to you, because it's such a small town vibe. And it took me a lot. I will say, it took me a lot, because I'm like, am I settling, am I asking for less? But the matter of fact is, it's like, no, you just have different goals now. You're planning to own a home before you're 30, or when you're 30. And that's a big goal, especially right now that we're in recession and interest rates are at all-time high. So, yeah, I don't know if you ladies, if you're listening right now, if you relate to this at all, or did you decide to go more into debt? Because I'll be so transparent with you, Kirsten. we were really, really financially struggling in this transition of my husband getting a new career because we didn't have a home. And I share this like very honestly on here with my ladies. Like, I didn't have a home because it didn't make any financial sense, but also like logistic sense to sign a new either lease or rent in a new place when I knew that I was going to be moving within the next 3 months somewhere else. And so we found ourselves in debt because of the cost of living, simply the cost of living of moving from Airbnb to Airbnb. I was in San Diego. San Diego is not cheap, but had all means. However, God really showed up for us and he really provided for us. We could have made worse decisions and get us into more debt, but because we played the long-term game, I think our debt right now is going to be consolidated by the end of this year. Um, and it's such a blessing to even say that, right?
That's amazing considering I think about how much debt people usually have like for other reasons, in the sense that usually like people acquire it in terms of like either from student loans or credit cards from living outside of their means significantly. So that's excellent and just like phenomenal that you guys are, how do I say, so self-aware and conscious of that, because unfortunately I think so many people have viewed um trying to keep up with their friends or their families, whatnot, as like the normal. And the reality is like, no, it's actually like not taking charge of your FICO score, your credit health. It affects you, especially in the long term when you're making major decisions.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I'll say my credit score on here because I'm so proud of it. I am at 787. Okay. That's my credit score. Keep note of that. Okay. Flex. Um, but I mean, it's like, again, we had to make so many sacrifices. And of course, I want all the sparkly things. Of course, I want all these things. And how you said, sometimes I go, I see what my other friends are doing, what my family is doing. And it's like, am I ever going to either get there? But then you also don't know, how in debt is this person? Because I'll be frank on here. Like, my husband generates pretty stable income, and then I come in and then it's like a surplus. So it's we live to say that I live very comfortably right now is such a blessing, because a year and a half ago I was at a very different place. But I do think I needed to go through that because my mindset wasn't where it is at this point in time. And so, moving on to my following question, when and where did you start learning about all these concepts of like trauma tied to money, or limiting beliefs tied to money, or just habits? Like, how can someone identify that their view on money is not normal?
Yes, so I would say that a lot of this I started to see when I was working with clients and asking questions in terms of like specifically in terms of why they believe they couldn't achieve certain goals, or the way they would talk about money and the sense of the things they were going through. Specifically, like a lot of women, in the sense of they're like, no, I don't believe that X is possible for me, or this is just the way it is. And it was interesting because I started to ask myself, why? Because specifically I think that if you are daughter of immigrant parents like I am, a lot of the times we're just told out, you know what, the harder you work for money, I mean the more you like, the harder you work, the more money you're going to make. That was just like the mindset that was kind of like I think integrated in us. And so when I started to ask these questions and whatnot, I really wanted to like understand my clients like deeper and be able to like serve them in a different way. And so I interview a few of my mentors that I had at the time. These were women that were like in their 50s, 60s, had really great lifestyles and whatnot. More than anything, I think they were just had this like serene, like this very serene outlook and neutral outlook on money, which I thought was very interesting because they weren't super materialistic, and just had so much confidence in the way that they approached making decisions and whatnot. And so I thought, how can I experience those emotions? How can I feel that? So I was able to I would say in terms of like pick their brain a little bit. And that prompted me later to getting my certification as a trauma of money instructor later on down the road, because I really wanted to understand in terms of like, well, how do different things impact our relationship with money, such as being neurodivergent and whatnot? What if you have ADHD or ADD? You know, how can that impact your habits and get to, if you know yourself better, I think we can adapt and curate our habits better to in a way that serves us. But unless we're able to understand ourselves on that deep level, are we going to be able to make the necessary adjustments and realize, no, there's not something wrong with us, but maybe we actually need to do things in a different way.
I love that. And I wanted to add that can you hear me, first of all?
Yes, I can.
Through the same microphone or through a different one? Do I sound different now?
Different one. The audio sounds a little different.
Okay, yeah, I have to switch it because my computer for some reason is about to die. So anyway, this is so interesting to me because, like, even describe what do you even mean with the outlook of neutral? Like, how does that even look like?
Yes, I would say that like a lot of us in terms of like seeing money as something neutral is when you don't have in terms of like this negative emotions toward it, or like we could say financial conversations, they're not something that make you angry or make you stressed or make you feel sad, because a lot of the times these types of conversations, especially when talking about the fear of negotiating your salary, you know, with your boss or asking for a raise, things like that, they can make people feel so scared. The imposter syndrome creeps in. But we're like, well, why do those feelings creep in? Why am I really scared to have those conversations? You know, why am I actually afraid to raise my prices? If I'm providing more value in X offer, if I've updated X service, if you're a business owner. So really understanding that can really, I think, help us understand why or even like where these beliefs came from. Because a lot of the times we don't understand that, you know what, those aren't actually mine, but I learned them from someone else. I've literally gotten those from hearing them from conversation. So I think really going in the little walk down memory lane, sometimes we don't understand a lot of those answers. They start from what we heard growing up. What did our parents, what was the way that they talked about money? Were there constant like discussions, you know, things like that? Or were there positive conversations of, you know what, sweetheart, this is how we're going to say, you know, for X goal or whatnot? Or was there a lot of tension, a lot of stress around it?
I love that. And so I think that that a lot of us I'm also an immigrant. Well, I always say like first generation, but like half of the first generation of, you know, being in a first world country. And that is so true what you said about how our parents ingrained in us at such a young age. You need to just work really hard and then that's how you'll make money. And then as I get older and as I got older and as my mindset elevated, it was like, oh wait, actually that might not all be true.
Yes.
And yeah, and so it isn't until you start to kind of, how you said, attack those thoughts that you have in your head, walk down memory lane and be like, is this factual or is it not true? Or is this just from my parents' belief system? Is this belief system even healthy for me and really working for me? So I love that you said that. And usually your findings, what is it, depending on, you know, each of your clients, what do you find that when they take a look back at memory lane, do they say, oh wait, this doesn't even belong to me? Or like what's the response usually?
Exactly that. Usually it's, oh, wait, that's actually something that I heard my mom say. Or a lot of the times that's something that I saw my dad do. So if their dad, they saved money, they were super frugal, but they never really invested out of fear because they're like, stock market isn't reliable. They heard that somewhere. They're like, no, why if you can lose money, you know? They never they didn't have that example. They didn't see their dad, you know what? Or hear, actually, I'm going to invest money. I'm going to put my money to work for me. And all they heard was go to school, work hard, save your money, but not the other part about how to make your money work for you. then there's a whole other part of the equation lost. And that's the reason why they're like, you know what? And now I understand why I'm so frugalicious. Okay.
Yeah, and so speaking about that, like investment as like as you know, a woman, how can we start getting into investing? I know there's it's Fidelity, but I know that we're on there. Fidelity, how can someone start tracking even like the stock market, and what's the point of all of that? If you can give us like a quick summary, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So essentially one of the first things I would say even like before starting investing actually is to make sure that you have a proper emergency fund. So have a high yield savings account first of all before you tap in there. Great question. I would say having your bases, that foundation just like of a house, you want to make sure that you're covered for a rainy day. If you're married as well, like a lot of the ladies here likely are, make sure you have a separate bank account as well. Maintain your autonomy, even within a relationship. Um, have those money dates with your spouse. Not because investing, how do I say that part isn't important, but making sure you start from the bottom up is important. If you have any significant moves in terms of or decisions that you know you're going to need to plan and prepare for, great. Open a sinking fund in a separate high yield savings account. Save up save every month X amount of money. If you know you're going to eventually have to make a move, or whatnot. So things like that don't make you, have stress later on down the road. Now, in terms of investing, and that particular part, preferably if you are able to get the support of a planner advisor for your situation, I would say that's the most recommendable thing as well, because you're really going to be able to look deep down into your finances and see, okay, where are you? What are you able to do? What's most important, depending on the amount of debt you have. Do you have high interest debt? Do you have low interest debt? So, and that specific ratio. In terms of short-term investments, we know things in terms of like, for example, certain funds are great, just like you mentioned, in terms of like Fidelity. Long-term, always look at the taxes aspect, especially if you're in the US here, taxes do matter. So in terms of if you are able to take advantage of any benefits if you're employed, your W-2, you work for a company, take advantage of your employer's 401k if they offer matching, things like that, free money,
Mhm.
leverage that to your advantage. If you don't, then there's tax advantaged solutions, like, for example, a Roth IRA, which is also a great way to start saving for your future. So, and the nitty gritty stuff, those are a few of the things that I would recommend.
So we said high yield savings account, have your own, and a joint one. We talked about the short-term investments, which is Fidelity, and then we talked about connecting it with your employer as well for tax benefits, the Roth IRA and the 401k. And I can't remember which one my husband has. I keep forgetting. He's on a great pension. Right. He's gonna have a really good pension when he retires. But I wish I remembered which one he said. He basically said that if something were to ever happen to him, that it'd be very well taken care of. Like you are gonna be fine. So I can't remember right now. But ladies, if you don't know what these terms mean, please go ahead and, just do a quick Google search. That actually helped my husband and I in the early stages of us getting married. Having a financial advisor really helped us because especially when we were struggling, he was able to really give us a perspective of where our finances were, what we were spending on, and really gave us a reality check. I always recommend this to newlyweds. If you're struggling or arguing about money, don't fight over money. Get someone that can help you. Yes, it's going to be an investment. Yes, they're going to have a specific fee, but do your research on that financial advisor, because it could seriously save your marriage. Like it could really, really save your marriage and the perspective that both of you guys have on money. So that, because they play like the middleman. Like I just look at the numbers, I'm seeing where we spend, I'm seeing what comes in, I'm seeing what comes out. Let me help you set up your, all the accounts that we just talked about. So that was a really big blessing to know that there's resources like that out there as well.
Yes, absolutely. And having a consistent, I would say also money date with your spouse is really important to track how things are going, like every month, set a time or a date, just like any other romantic date, because that can really help you either shift goals in the sense of maybe there's pivots that need to be done if there's any priorities that have changed, such as, for example, any car repairs or saving for a new car, whatever, or maybe even having stronger boundaries with certain family members, even just like knowing when to say no, I think is also a very underrated but important financial boundary.
Absolutely. Let's talk about money dates a little bit here because I know that so my husband and I now that I'm pregnant, it's completely different. We have to pivot from what we used to do. So for all you ladies that don't know, I am allergic to alcohol. However, cigars, okay, cigars is where it got me. Okay. I really enjoy educating myself on cigars and I really do enjoy cigars here and there. But what my husband and I found because we enjoy that hobby together, that's when we really sit down and break up our finances whenever we used to go on like our monthly cigar day where he would get his little bourbon or his whiskey with his cigar and then I'd be with my cigar and then the nicotine would hit a little bit and we'd be like, oh, so relaxed. And because we were both so relaxed, it was like, okay, now let's talk about finances, looking at it from a very neutral perspective, like what are our goals? What are we fighting for? How much are we going to pay towards debt? How much are we going to save? How much money is coming in? Do I need to pick up extra shifts? Do I need to say yes to more work? Do I need more overtime? It was really interesting. And that really worked for us, setting up those like killing two birds with one stone, if you will, of being romantic, but also like setting up those spaces so that we could talk about finances so that you can be on the same page. And I came to find like, oh my gosh, I'm one, I'm so expensive. Two, wow, my husband really is doing this thing, providing for all of us and that extra money that, I generate, it could be going to, it could be allocated elsewhere for the things that he needs, right? And it's being okay with compromising and being like, okay, even though right now I might be giving like more than half or half. If you're someone who would like me who lives a specific wants to live a very specific lifestyle in the early stages of your marriage, like you are gonna have to sacrifice certain things. Like for example, if we lived in another state, totally different conversation. We would be able to live in it under just, currently right now, live under just one income. However, um, because we live in California and we live in Napa Valley, just with the fact that we live in California in like a nice area of California, things are going to be looking very different financially. Not to say that we're not going to be able to live under one income eventually, but to set us up for that, we need these dates right now. Now, if I wish I would have known having money dates would have really set me up for success when I was single. So Kirsten, what do you recommend? How do you recommend women to really line up money dates and why is it even beneficial to them to have it?
Yes, of course. I would say having these open conversations like early on. And it doesn't have to be something like stressful, like, oh my gosh, like in terms of like right after your husband comes from work and and he is just looking to relax. But in terms of this can be something done on a weekend or whatnot, pop open, your favorite drink or whatnot, and actually just in terms of check in, look at your credit card statements together. Were there any charges you don't recognize, things like that? Any subscriptions that you may want to cancel or you maybe aren't needing anymore? Are there things that you need to modify? What did you like about your spending habits from last month? What do you want to change moving forward? I think so many times it's really easy to just move through life, through the week on autopilot. But when you're able to do these, of course, depending on your debt balances or whatnot, for some people, if you really struggle with financial discipline, you may need to do these twice a month, every 2 weeks. If you feel like things are really contained, very stable, very consistent, once a month is enough. But that's really going to help to make sure, okay, where's everything going? And if there anything needs to be adjusted in terms of perhaps one partner has a certain habit that maybe they need a little bit support on, or whatnot, or maybe things need to be adjusted in terms of eating out. How many times are you doing that? Are you depending on it in that case? So I think just really being conscious in terms of like you and your partner's like habits and where you guys are at in terms of what you're trying to achieve is really going to help curate it and make it an experience that is shouldn't be definitely something that makes either one of you uncomfortable, but it's kind of more like a mirror, like a mirror when you're putting your makeup on and whatnot. It's going to make you realize, hey, I need a little bit more moisturizer here, maybe I need to turn on the humidifier at night, my skin's a little dry. It's just simply a mirror, a little checklist to kind of see, hey, you know what? This is what I can do better. This is what I can improve on.
Absolutely. And, this leads me to my follow-up question. As women, how can we protect our families from financial ruin? Where does this start?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think in terms of something I touched base upon a little bit earlier, in terms of when we were talking about having separate finances as well as joint, it is good to have your joint accounts, but making sure even in like the merging process, you always have that. You always have your emergency fund, just a separate bank account in that case. Also, thing as well is making sure you're on the same page in terms of having certain boundaries with family members. Sometimes things happen or whatnot where even it can be something good where someone, oh my gosh, they are getting married or whatnot, and it's maybe out of state or out of the country or whatnot. Are you guys prepared in order to, number one, have those expenses set aside, whatnot? What are you going to participate in? Or maybe are there things you're going to have to modify? Maybe you can only make it to the bachelorette trip or whatnot. I would say also making sure in terms of having friends around you that shared the same values, that share similar values, because if you have people around you that just really believe in, they don't have a strong respect for money, they don't believe in terms of security, peace, or some of the things that are important to you that you value, you're going to be like them. I think about 1 Corinthians 15:33 in terms of association, the impact that bad association can have on our health, not just spiritually, but also financially. So making sure that we're associating with people that we share similar values and are helping us have a better have a better relationship with ourselves, have a better respect for ourselves, is really going to benefit us in the long term.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, because you usually don't think about that. Fortunately, my husband and I we have healthy friends, and we're just not like, I don't even know how to say this. Like, we just don't spend out of craziness or compete at all. And I think that if you were in a family situation where you're constantly competing, that would be tough and rough. But it's like just doing what is necessary for us to get us to the goal. So I completely agree with you. Having the same mindset and the same goals, and fortunately, a lot of the people that we surround ourselves with are very family oriented. So they view a lot of the things very similar the way that we do. But I can't imagine how maybe having different, different lifestyles could really impact you. And I will also say it goes both ways. Like maybe someone's overspending, but also maybe people who have like an anxious attachment towards like money, who are kind of stuck, because I know that that is a I guess that's like, oops, controversial opinion. That's a requirement for me. Like if you aren't at the same wavelength or frequency as me in terms of lifestyle or the outcome, the outlook that you look in life, like maybe you might not be where you want to be financially at that point, but you're positive and you're just like, this is just temporary, this is a season, I'm setting myself up for success, like I'm working towards something, I'm always going to welcome those people in. But people who are kind of like just stuck on like, the world is just corrupt, there's no way for me to generate income, like there's no opportunities for me, and who maybe believe that they're just going to be stuck at a financial place for the rest of their life, that's where I tend to exclude myself a little bit because I'm like, no, this doesn't belong to me. This doesn't resonate with me. And there just needs to be some growth there. Is that
I don't
controversial to
claim
say?
that.
I'm like, is that controversial to say? Which in most cases it sucks because like, um, as you know, coming from being Mexican American myself, and having families who are first generation or are immigrants themselves, that can be like the source, that could be a lot of the that's how they might feel a lot of the times, maybe I'm feeling unworthy of generating a specific level of income. Like the other day I was talking to my dad, I'm like, oh yeah, in a couple of years, like we need to be generating this amount of income for us to be able to buy a house and be comfortable. And the response was, oh, that's too much money. And I was like, no, it's not, and it's possible. And it was kind of like my mom started laughing. She's like, she's like, okay. And but it's like not allowing those kind of like comments or remarks to penetrate, because it's like, this is going to be my reality. Like, that's what I want, and that's what we're working towards. I don't know if you have anything
Yes.
to add.
No, that is huge. That is absolutely huge. I 100% am with you on that, because I think also like what you're, especially like if ladies, if you come from a background that's like, we could say where certain beliefs or certain sayings are really common in terms of like culture wise, in terms of how people like relate to money and whatnot. Those things can really affect, they can really affect your outlook and what you think is possible. So protecting your dream, protecting your goal is something you have to hold really close. You have to be very fierce. I was joking around with a friend of mine. I'm like, you almost have to be like in a Rottweiler era, in the sense of like nothing is gonna distract you. Like when you see a Rottweiler like bite onto that toy or something, like you could hang a piece of like the juiciest jerky, like or whatnot, or the juiciest like snack in front of that Rottweiler, and it's like not gonna like let go because it's like locked in. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think about that in terms of like what you believe is possible and whatnot. And sometimes, how do I say, you can agree to disagree, and because the reality is we're not going to change how these people, what they perceive as possible, but a lot of the times people will only project to you what they believe is possible for them. So if they don't believe they could do it, or they don't believe it was possible for them at your age or where you're in life, that's why they say that, because they're like, they could never see themselves achieving those things. They don't view themselves as being capable of doing those things. That's only why. It's not because you aren't capable.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So yeah, it's about saying no, it is possible, and it is possible, through Christ, because the purpose that you have for your life is very different from, maybe other people around you's purposes, right? And so this leads me to my following question. My second to last question is, how can we stay abundant? We live in a world where right now we don't believe it until we see it. We live in a world where there's a lot of negativity, although there's a lot of us out there where we are very positive, and we're very kind and we're very abundant. I notice that on my day-to-day life, I don't see that as much as I would like to. Obviously, with my close circle of friends and with the people that I hang out with all the time, it's very normal, but I step out of that and I see the complete opposite. I encounter things that I have a lot of compassion towards, and it's like, oh, please open your eyes. Like, life is so wonderful, and you're so abundant, and I can't hold it in sometimes. But how can we stay there from your personal experience and from working with clients for so long? What were some habits that they had that you noticed really helped them stay in that frequency of abundance?
Yes, I would say specifically with one of the women that these ladies that was a mentor of mine. Like I would say one of the biggest lessons and things that she always practiced was just living in a state of perpetual gratitude. So similar to like what you were mentioning right now. And what I mean, like living in perpetual gratitude, it's almost like this blissful dissatisfaction, this state of blissful dissatisfaction where you are grateful for what you have, but you don't let that stop you from settling. I mean, you don't let that keep You don't let that, um, how do I say? You
Keep you
don't let
from
that
settling?
stop you from reaching for more, pretty
Okay.
much.
Hmm.
Sorry, I got tongue twisted.
Okay.
Too many thoughts, too many thoughts. Um, but essentially, in the sense that you're grateful for what you have, but you're not going to let that stop you from reaching for more, from knowing that you're capable of achieving more. I would say, in terms of also having that state of gratitude and just being grateful for things in advance before they've even happened. So, like praying for things as if they've already happened, I would say is also something very beautiful, very powerful as well, because it's like you're showing that you're almost like, I would say, experiencing this state of gratitude as if you've already achieved these things. And so that is one way that I would say specifically. It's just almost like counting out your blessings in that case, because you see things through a different lens. You're like, okay, this is what I'm already experiencing, what it's going to feel like, as if I've already achieved these goals, as if I've already knocked off these milestones off my list. So that is something that I would say is definitely so beautiful, that really helps us from avoiding feeling these feelings of like lack or scarcity, because I'm like, where do those feelings even come from this like lie that we've told ourselves that we're not enough,
Hmm.
and just things aren't sufficient. That's where those feelings creep in. That's where they creep in.
And I would say a lot of fear too around having to see it before it actually happens, I think as well. Because really this life is about living in faith, I think. So I love what you shared. And does our faith play a role in the way we view money at all? Like what would be your perspective on that? Because I know that um I had, even though I had to shift my mindset on certain things, it was very empowering to see like, oh, like for example, there's a couple Bible verses where, Jesus says like a rich man won't be able to enter, heaven, and you can't have two masters. You either worship money or you worship, your creator. So I'm not too sure like where you fall on that or what you've seen working with, your students, with your clients, like what do you think on that? Like, does our faith affect the way that we view money?
I think absolutely. And just having clarity on specifically, for example, here, like what the Bible actually says about money is really important. So if we think about, well, what is scripture specifically told us? So the Bible actually acknowledges that money, like when used as a resource in a wise way, can be a form of protection. We see this here in Ecclesiastes 7:12. Wisdom is a protection just as money is a protection. So that kind of gives us a hint in terms of that. The other thing is there's a really common saying, I think a limiting belief that, we probably heard one place or another, like money is the root of all evil, but what does the Bible actually teach about this? So if we go to like First Timothy 6:10, I find it really interesting that like we see here is that, oh my gosh, that's actually a misleading Bible quotation, right? Because here it's saying the love of money is the root of all evil. So
Mhm.
Bible doesn't actually say that money is evil.
Mhm.
Nor is it saying that money is this like underlying cause of all these really bad things. So like that's something really important to understand, because number one, what is its place in your life? If you see it as, what, it's just the gas that's going to help give this car, my goals, my purpose, the fuel, then you're gonna understand it's not the final destination, it's not the location, but it's simply just the fuel that helps us do whatever your purpose is, advancing kingdom interests, serving your community, etc., being a wonderful mom. And actually I really like this text as well in Proverbs 11:25. Here it says, the where those that are showing generosity towards others, like it's a good thing. It mentions here the generous person will prosper. So the Bible is encouraging those that share their resources with others. So I'm like, when you use your resources to bless the lives of others, what a beautiful thing, you know? You're not making it the focus, the epicenter of your life. But if you realize where to allocate it in terms of its purpose, you keep it in its place, um, then it can be a great thing to help impact others, bless the lives of others, um, in that case. So, I mean, the Bible really has great verses um, in terms of money, but here specifically, like that really big limiting belief of like First Timothy 6:10, love of money. It's people who love money, I think, that make it their main focus in life, that have a lot of they suffer, you know, they can suffer and experience issues such as maybe poor health from overworking, burnout, things like that. um that's kind of some perspective I wanted to share.
No, yeah, no, this is really good because I agree. I mean, that's why I always say, like, even in terms of dating, like, make sure that he's financially stable because that's a sign of like good health, like just good health, good decision making, wisdom, and stability. And so, I agree that in terms of loving money and making money your center of your entire universe, that's where power, you're not even, it's not even that you're in love with money, it's the fact that you're in love with power and greed, which are two separate things, right? And I agree with what you said as well as like being an amazing mother, right? The reason why I married very specifically was because I want to be a present mother. I want to be a present mother, and I don't think that it should be my responsibility to be a present mother and also generate and contribute financially. I think that contributing within my family is contributing financially. And so I think that also whenever a man pursues, his career with his purpose, he's rewarded with financial stability. So I completely agree with you on that. And I just hope that everybody who's listening, if you have some limiting beliefs in terms of money, really seek out help, really seek out content that is really meant to help you. I know that right now social media is just very negative, and with the eggs being so expensive and with all of these things, like I find myself in positions where I'm just so thankful and things just end up working out for the best, like in weird circumstances where just when you let go of the idea of you control money or that money maybe is working against you, like things just start working out for you. And I say this from personal experience as an average woman who's like middle class, like um things just always tend to work out in my favor when I'm living in faith and when I just put my trust in God's hands. Things just always tend to work out in my favor in very various ways. So I hope that that gives you some hope and some inspiration. I don't know if you have any books that you would like to share with us, Kirsten, before we close out the conversation.
Yes, of course. So there's a few great ones out there. I love one of them. You guys have probably heard of it. Psychology of Money is a really great one. I also like this one by another author. Happy Money by Ken Honda is also a really great one as well. Those are two that come to mind right now in terms of that aspect. I don't know if you were also referring to the hormonal stuff.
Yeah, you can add in those as well. Because I think you are more likely to spend crazily if you're super sad than if you are really happy and abundant. Um, So add in those books too. I am staring at the book of The Psychology of Money, and something came to me really quickly that I feel like I need to share. He talks about luck. Like sometimes it's all about luck, right? And he puts like different types of economies in like the first couple of chapters or the first chapter. And it's so interesting because it gives you a different perspective, right? So I recently moved to a different city where I'm starting to see very specific patterns from San Diego, but that's a very urban, very stable, very already stabilized city versus Napa Valley. There's still a lot of room for growth. And so because I see those patterns, I think about this book and I'm like, luck. You just sometimes it's all a matter of like opportunity, not so much that you're not working hard enough or that you're not looking in the right places or that the world is against you, but more like you just need one opportunity, but that requires like the right mindset. And so I'm seeing things work for me here because one of reading that book, perspective shift, but also analyzing the just the growth of different cities and really looking at it from a sociological perspective. It's like, okay, now it's the time to move. Now it's the time to allocate the money elsewhere or invest in different things. So I really just wanted to point that out there, that the psychology of money really helped me personally and shift my perspective on money. That's such a great recommended book. I don't know if you have anything to add before you introduce us with the hormonal book.
So in the flow, this book, I think particularly in terms of like understanding your body and specifically in terms of like aligning how you feel yourself, your diet during different phases of your cycle is also really beneficial because I think like when your hormones are balanced, your emotions are more balanced, you're also more likelier to not make, I think, irrational decisions like financially or more emotional decisions, but you're going to be grounded more. You're not going to have this need or certain urges and whatnot because you're thinking very clearly and whatnot. So I really like in the flow. Specifically, I think in terms of, I think it also touches base on cycle syncing as well. So just like understanding in terms of how to properly make sure you're having the right foods during different phases of your period is very helpful as a woman. So that's that's the tea.
Awesome. No, thank you so much. I'll definitely be looking into those books and probably reread the books, The Psychology of Money. I have to. And thank you so much for saving your time again. I appreciate this conversation. I don't know if you have any last notes to add before we close out.
Oof, I think it's gonna be a wrap here. I've just had such a wonderful time with you, Karla. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope you ladies have like in terms of are able to do a little bit of introspection and really be able to understand in terms of like where your money beliefs are coming from. Are they serving you in the best way? And which ones do you need to shift so they serve you moving forward in a better way?
Thank you so much for your wisdom and your knowledge and your advice. And with that, ladies, I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye.